On a cruise ship kitchen, there's an unwritten hierarchy that determines where the head chef invests the most creative energy each evening. Most passengers assume it's the entree, the steak, the lobster, the main event that everyone talks about at the table. A sous chef who worked on celebrity ships for 5 years explained during a culinary panel at a food expo that the assumption is completely wrong. He said the head chef on every ship he'd worked on treated the appetizer section of the menu as the creative signature of the entire dining program. The entrees are crowd pleasers that need to satisfy thousands of passengers with predictable tastes. The desserts follow established recipes that the pastry team executes on repeat. But the appetizers are where the head chef writes the menu the way a novelist writes an opening chapter. It's where they take risks. It's where they introduce ingredients that passengers have never encountered. It's where they prove to themselves and to their kitchen team that this isn't a cafeteria operation. It's a restaurant that happens to float. And most passengers flip past that opening chapter in 4 seconds to get to the steak they were always going to order. There are 11 appetizer secrets that the kitchen wishes passengers knew. And secret number 8 involves a dish that doesn't appear on any printed menu on any cruise line, but that the kitchen will make for any passenger who knows to ask for it by name. The first secret is one that changes every appetizer you eat for the rest of the cruise the moment you learn it. The daily appetizer specials are where the chef takes the biggest risks and produces the most ambitious food on the entire menu. And they appear once and never come back. The permanent appetizer items, shrimp cocktail, Caesar salad, and French onion soup on some lines, are available every night. They're safe. They're reliable. They're designed for the passengers who want predictability. But the daily specials are a completely different category of food. These are dishes the chef designed specifically for that one evening, using seasonal ingredients, port-inspired flavors, and techniques that the permanent menu doesn't attempt. A seared scallop with citrus beurre blanc that appears on night 3 and vanishes by night 4. A duck confit terrin with fig compote that shows up once during a Mediterranean sailing because the ship loaded figs at the last port. A chilled lobster medallion with avocado mousse that the chef created for formal night and will never serve again on this voyage. The passengers who order the daily specials every single night eat 11 to 14 unique dishes across a 7-night cruise that no other passenger on the next sailing will ever taste, because the rotation shifts. The passengers who order shrimp cocktail 7 nights in a row eat one dish 7 times and miss the chef's best work entirely. The second secret is about the Amuse-Bouche, and most passengers have no idea this exists because it only appears on certain cruise lines and only under specific circumstances. An Amuse-Bouche is a single bite of food, typically presented on a small spoon or in a tiny vessel, that the kitchen sends to your table before the appetizer course begins. You didn't order it. It's not on the menu. It simply appears. On Oceania, Viking, Silversea, and some celebrity sailings, the Amuse-Bouche is a nightly tradition that the kitchen uses to set the tone for the evening's menu. It might be a tiny cup of chilled soup, a single piece of sashimi-grade tuna on a crisp, a miniature tartlet with goat cheese and caramelized onion, or a single shrimp with a microgreen garnish and a dot of sauce. The Amuse-Bouche takes the chef approximately 30 seconds of concentrated effort per piece, which makes it the most labor-intensive item per bite on the entire menu. Most passengers on lines that serve it eat the Amuse-Bouche without registering what just happened. They pop it in their mouth while reading the menu and miss the experience entirely. The passengers who pause, taste it deliberately, and recognize it as the chef's personal greeting to their table discover that it often previews the flavor direction of the evening specials. A citrusy Amuse-Bouche signals a lighter menu ahead. A rich, earthy one signals heavier fare. The chef is telling you what's coming if you pay attention to the first bite. On Oceania specifically, the Amuse-Bouche is treated as a genuine culinary statement. Jacques Pepin's culinary philosophy emphasizes that the first bite of any meal creates the emotional framework for everything that follows. And Oceania's kitchen teams take this principle seriously enough to produce a unique Amuse-Bouche every single evening of the voyage. Passengers who sail Oceania frequently cite the nightly Amuse-Bouche as one of the most distinctive elements of the dining program because it signals from the very first moment of dinner that this kitchen cares about craft at a level most passengers haven't experienced at sea. The third secret is about the appetizer course at lunch in the main dining room, and this is the one that most passengers completely overlook because they associate appetizers exclusively with dinner. On cruise lines that serve a sit-down lunch in the MDR, the appetizer section of the lunch menu is entirely different from the dinner appetizer menu, and on many ships, the lunch appetizers are more casual, more creative, and served in larger portions than their dinner counterparts. The reason is volume. Fewer passengers eat lunch in the dining room because most default to the buffet or the pool deck grill. The lower volume means the kitchen has more time per plate, more flexibility in preparation, and more willingness to experiment with items that wouldn't survive the pressure of dinner service. A lunch appetizer that requires last-second finishing, a precise sauce drizzle, or a delicate garnish arrangement can be executed beautifully when the kitchen is producing 60 plates instead of 600. The passengers who eat lunch in the MDR at least 2 or 3 times during the voyage discover an entirely separate appetizer menu that doesn't exist at dinner. And the quality per plate is often higher because the kitchen's attention isn't divided across thousands of simultaneous orders. There's a specific timing advantage at lunch that amplifies this secret. The MDR lunch service typically runs from noon to 1:30, and the sweet spot is arriving at 12:15, when the kitchen has warmed up from the first orders but the rush hasn't hit yet. At 12:15, the kitchen is producing at a relaxed pace with full focus. Your appetizer gets individual attention from the line cook, and the plating is noticeably more careful than it will be at 12:45 when the room fills up. The combination of a separate lunch appetizer menu plus a quieter kitchen plus the 12:15 timing window creates the highest quality per plate appetizer experience available on the ship at any meal. The fourth secret is about how the kitchen decides which appetizers appear on which nights. And understanding this pattern lets you predict the best appetizer nights of the entire voyage before they happen. The menu rotation on most cruise lines follows a deliberate arc. The first night's menu is designed to be accessible and familiar because passengers are still settling in and the kitchen is calibrating to the ship's passenger demographics. The appetizers on night 1 are typically the safest, most universally appealing options. By night 3 and 4, the kitchen has read the room. They know whether this particular group of passengers is adventurous or conservative, and the mid-voyage menus reflect that assessment. Night 3 and 4 appetizers are usually the most creative and the most ambitious because the kitchen has confidence in the audience. The final night's appetizers escalate again with the most premium ingredients of the voyage because the kitchen wants to send passengers home with a memorable last meal. If you're going to order adventurous appetizers, nights 3 through 5 are where the chef is pushing the hardest. If you want the most premium ingredients, the final night is where the budget peaks. This pattern holds across Royal Caribbean, Celebrity, Holland America, Princess, and most other lines with traditional rotating menus. Once you see the arc, you can plan your appetizer strategy across the full voyage instead of making blind choices every evening. Here's a practical approach. On night 1, order 1 adventurous appetizer to establish your profile with your weight. On nights 2 and 3, explore the daily specials as they begin to get more creative. On nights 4 and 5, order the most ambitious options on the menu because this is the peak of the chef's creative arc. On the final night, order the premium special because the kitchen is spending the most per plate. This strategic approach across the full voyage means you're eating the right appetizer at the right moment in the menu cycle, which is something that fewer than 1% of passengers ever consciously do. The fifth secret involves the appetizer section of the specialty restaurant menus and a crossover opportunity that most passengers never discover. On many cruise lines, certain specialty restaurant appetizers can be ordered in the main dining room if you ask your head waiter to arrange it. This doesn't work universally, and it doesn't work every night. But on ships where the specialty restaurants and the MDR share a common galley infrastructure, the ingredients for specialty appetizers are physically present in the same kitchen, producing your MDR dinner. A head waiter with enough authority can sometimes request that the kitchen prepare a specialty appetizer for an MDR guest, particularly on quieter evenings when the specialty restaurant isn't at full capacity. This doesn't mean you can order the entire Chops Grill menu at the MDR. It means that a specific appetizer, like a signature soup or a premium seafood starter, might be available if you ask the right person on the right night. The passengers who build a relationship with their head waiter by the second or third evening and ask whether any specialty items are available tonight occasionally unlock dishes that aren't on any menu at their table. The sixth secret is about a course that exists between the appetizer and the entree on most cruise lines, but that 90% of passengers don't realize they can order separately. The Intermezzo. On premium and luxury lines including Oceania, Viking, Crystal, and Silversea, a sorbet intermezzo is served between the appetizer and the main course to cleanse the palate. On mass market lines, the intermezzo isn't automatic but can be requested. Ask your waiter for a small sorbet between your appetizer and your entree, and on most ships the kitchen will provide a scoop of lemon, mango, or raspberry sorbet in a small dish. The intermezzo serves a genuine culinary purpose. The acid and cold temperature of the sorbet reset your taste buds after the appetizer, so the first bite of your entree hits with full impact instead of landing on a palate that's still processing the flavors of the previous course. Fine dining restaurants on land charge for intermezzo courses. On a cruise ship, it's complimentary if you know to ask. The passengers who request it describe a noticeable difference in how their entree tastes because the palate reset is real and the effect is immediate. One small scoop of sorbet between courses transforms a good dinner into a dinner that flows like a professional tasting menu. The seventh secret is about the soup course, and specifically about the gap between the soup listed on the daily menu and the soup the kitchen is actually proudest of that evening. Most cruise ship menus list 2 soups each night, one clear broth-based and one cream-based. But the kitchen often produces a third soup that doesn't appear on the printed menu. This is the chef's soup, sometimes called the soup du jour or the special soup, and it's made in a smaller batch using premium ingredients or a technique that the standard soups don't employ. A roasted butternut squash bisque with sage brown butter that took 3 hours to prepare. A seafood chowder with fresh shellfish loaded at the last port. A wild mushroom consomme that's crystal clear and deeply flavored from hours of careful straining. This secret soup appears at the top of the menu on some nights, but on other nights it exists only in the kitchen's preparation log and is available to passengers who ask their waiter whether there's a soup tonight that isn't on the printed menu. The waiter knows. The kitchen made it. The question is whether anyone at any table bothered to ask. The passengers who ask discover that the secret soup is almost always the most ambitious liquid dish the kitchen produces that evening, because it's the one the chef made for passion rather than for volume. The eighth secret is the one I mentioned at the beginning. The dish that doesn't appear on any printed menu on any cruise line, but that the kitchen will make for any passenger who knows to ask for it by name. The Grand Plateau de Fruits de Mer, a chilled seafood platter traditionally served as a shared appetizer at French brasseries, featuring an arrangement of chilled shrimp, oysters on the half shell, crab claws, lobster tail, mussels, clams, and sometimes sea urchin or langoustine, displayed on a tiered stand over crushed ice with lemon wedges, mignonette sauce, and cocktail sauce. This is not an appetizer. It's a centerpiece, and on cruise lines that stock the individual components, which includes virtually every line that serves lobster tail on formal night and oysters Rockefeller as an appetizer, the kitchen has every ingredient needed to assemble a grand plateau. The reason it's not on the menu is portion logistics. The kitchen can't produce 500 of these per evening, but for a table that requests one in advance, ideally through the head waiter or maitre d' a day before, the kitchen can assemble a stunning shared seafood platter that becomes the centerpiece of the table and the most talked about dish of the entire voyage. This works most reliably on Oceania, Celebrity, Holland America, and Viking, where the kitchen culture encourages custom requests and the ingredient quality supports premium assembly. The passengers who've successfully ordered a Grand Plateau describe the moment it arrives at the table as the most dramatic dining moment of any cruise they've ever taken, because the presentation on a tiered stand with crushed ice stops conversation at neighboring tables. There are a few practical details that increase your chances of successfully ordering this. First, make the request at least 24 hours in advance through the maitre d' or head waiter, not through your regular waiter, because the request needs to be communicated to the executive chef who decides whether the kitchen can accommodate it on a given evening. Second, request it for a night when the ship isn't at full dining room capacity, typically the second or third night of the cruise, rather than formal night when every table is occupied and the kitchen is at maximum output. Third, be prepared for the possibility that the kitchen says no. This isn't a guaranteed menu item. It's a custom request that depends on ingredient availability, kitchen capacity, and the chef's willingness. But the passengers who ask and receive a yes describe a dining moment that no printed menu on any cruise ship can deliver, because the Grand Plateau wasn't designed by a corporate test kitchen. It was designed by your request and assembled by a chef who was excited to build something extraordinary for someone who knew to ask. The ninth secret is about appetizer temperature, and this is a detail so specific that most passengers would never think to consider it, but it dramatically affects the flavor of everything they eat in the first course. Cold appetizers are meant to be eaten the moment they arrive at the table. Every minute a chilled appetizer sits untouched, it warms toward room temperature, and the flavor profile changes. A beef carpaccio that tastes clean, bright, and delicate at 38 degrees tastes flat, metallic, and slightly heavy at 55 degrees. A tuna tartare that's vibrant and fresh, when properly chilled, becomes soft and mushy as it warms. A gazpacho that's refreshing at cold temperature becomes dull and acidic at room temperature. The kitchen plates cold appetizers on chilled plates pulled from a refrigerated cabinet specifically to extend the cold window by a few extra minutes. When your cold appetizer arrives, eat the first bite immediately. Don't photograph it for 3 minutes. Don't wait for everyone at the table to be served. Don't finish your conversation before picking up your fork. The chef timed the plating, the plate chill, and the waiter's delivery speed to give you a specific temperature window, and every minute you wait closes that window. Hot appetizers have the same urgency in reverse. A cheese soufflé that's magnificent at the moment of arrival deflates within 4 minutes. The first bite of a hot appetizer is always the best bite because the temperature is at its peak and the textures are at their most dynamic. Eating appetizers at the right moment isn't about etiquette. It's about physics, and the passengers who eat their first bite within 30 seconds of the plate touching the table taste a fundamentally better version of the same dish than the passengers who let it sit. The 10th secret is about the appetizer course on embarkation day, and this is the meal that most passengers waste because they don't realize the first dinner sets the template for every dinner that follows. Your appetizer order on night 1 is the most important appetizer order of the entire cruise because it's the order your waiter uses to calibrate your preferences for the next 6 evenings. If you order a Caesar salad on night 1, your waiter categorizes you as a conservative eater and adjusts their recommendations accordingly for the rest of the voyage. They won't suggest the duck liver pate on night 3 because they've already decided you're not that passenger. If you order something adventurous on night 1, a carpaccio, a ceviche, a mussels mariniere, your waiter recategorizes you immediately as food engaged, and the recommendations that follow across the remaining nights become more creative, more insider, and more aligned with the kitchen's best work. Night 1 isn't just dinner. It's an audition. Your waiter is watching what you order and building a mental profile that determines the quality of recommendations you receive for the rest of the cruise. The passengers who order conservatively on night 1 receive conservative suggestions for 7 nights. The passengers who signal adventurousness on night 1 unlock a different tier of waiter engagement that compounds through every remaining dinner. The 11th secret, the one that ties every other appetizer secret together, is the one that most passengers find hardest to believe until they experience it. The appetizer course, when approached correctly, can be more memorable and more satisfying than the entree. This isn't a philosophical claim. It's a structural reality of how cruise ship kitchens operate. The appetizer section of the menu has more creative freedom, smaller portions that allow higher investment per plate, more frequent rotation that keeps the offerings fresh, access to premium ingredients on special nights that the entree section doesn't receive, and a plating standard that prioritizes visual impact because small plates show craftsmanship more dramatically than large ones. A 3-appetizer dinner with a sorbet intermezzo and a dessert, skipping the entree entirely, can produce a 5-course tasting experience that rivals what passengers pay $200 for at a specialty restaurant on land. The appetizer section is the most undervalued real estate on the cruise ship menu, and the passengers who recognize its potential eat a fundamentally different dinner than the ones who treat it as a speed bump on the way to the steak. The chef designed the appetizer section to be the highlight. The kitchen executes it with the most care. The ingredients on special nights are the most premium, and the passengers who finally give the appetizer course the attention it deserves discover what the kitchen has been trying to tell them every single night. The best part of dinner was always the first part. Most passengers just never slowed down enough to notice. Every one of these 11 secrets is active on cruise ships sailing right now in 2026. The daily specials that appear once and vanish. The Amuse-Bouche that previews the evening's direction. The lunch appetizers that nobody orders. The menu arc from safe to ambitious to premium across the voyage. The specialty restaurant crossover. The Sorbet Intermezzo that resets your palate for free. The secret third soup the chef made for passion. The Grand Plateau de fruits de mer that stops neighboring tables mid-conversation. The temperature window that closes every minute you wait. The night one audition that sets your waiter's profile for the week. And the structural reality that the appetizer course was designed to be the best part of dinner. If this changed how you approach the first page of the menu, you're going to want to see our video on the 15 cruise appetizers most passengers never order. That video is right here. Because the chef wrote the appetizer section the way a novelist writes an opening chapter, and the passengers who read it discover a completely different story than the ones who skipped ahead to the steak. Share this with whoever you're cruising with, because these 11 secrets work best when everyone at the table knows them. One person requests the Grand Plateau while another asks about the secret soup. One person orders the daily special while another requests the Sorbet Intermezzo. One person signals adventurousness on night one, while another asks the head waiter about specialty restaurant crossovers. When the whole table operates with insider knowledge, every dinner becomes an event that the passengers at the next table, eating their 7th consecutive Caesar salad, will never understand. The appetizer section was always the best part of the menu. Now you know why. And now you know 11 ways to unlock it that the kitchen has been waiting for someone to discover.